to get out the rigger. I mean, I could use the rigger, but I don't have to. Now some of these are more like reflections of the rocks instead of the trees, so I'm gonna start bringing that in here. It's brown like the rock, brown and tan, that reflection is. Well, let's put another little rock right in here. And let's just put a dash out here and lighten that up and bring another few ripples right here. And then the ripples are going to start to turn green. These ripples in the water are really just lines. They're wiggly, but if you really stop and think about it, you're looking at wiggly lines. And as they go back in space, they aren't quite as prominent. And so then over here, I see more shapes of reflections. A few more shapes at the edge. And they get wider as they go back toward the shore. And of course, I'm leaving some space there so I can create a shoreline. But here's the reflection of these green trees right along the shoreline. It goes all the way down and becomes a darker line as it gets back into the distance here. A little darker and maybe browner. And there's another bit of a line right there. So I'm going to darken this up a bit before I move on. Let's just say this rock up front has a few lines, tiny bit of texture. And it looks dry enough to hold a little texture now. Here's one that comes up here off this. There's some that just, and there's one there. And I think I would take a wet brush now and soften these out a bit. They're not going to disappear. I just want them to become more connected to the rock. And this one back here could be softened for sure. Going back to this earthy color that the rocks are, and I'm just gonna lay that in on the distant shore. The other thing, I'm gonna move along here and I'm gonna get some blue on my brush, the same manganese cerulean, something like that. And I'm going to lay in that distant mountain. And I do think it needs to be a little more blue. And I'm going to keep it pale. If I need to add something, I will. It's pale. I'm going to darken up the trees that are in front of it, actually. But I'm going to wait until this dries to do that. So we have a pretty nice start here on, I would say this painting is maybe 3/4 of the way done if we keep it simple. If we wanted it to be exact realism, I would say then it would be halfway done. So that's a bluish mountain in the background. There's a little extra blue there, but I don't want it to be as blue as the sky. That looks good. Now that I look at this rock here, it seems like it gets a little stronger in value at the bottom and lighter up at the top, which would make sense. There's a little dark shadow here and a few edges that I can incorporate back there. Like I said, let's keep this one really simple. Just add a few shadow darks. This beautiful burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. These rocks here could get a few shadows at the bottom. And of course, where that shadow is behind this rock, it helps to make it feel dimensional. And there's a dark rock over here behind this rock that I didn't put in earlier. And I think I'll add it in just to show you something about creating a dimension overlapping. This comes up here and it's darker than the rock in front of it, than the big rock. But then it lightens up as it goes back in space. So it really does have a wonderful rectangle in front. It's a rectangular rock. And that creates dimension immediately in that spot. And the other thing that's going to help is to pull in another few shadows. And now is the time where we can go into this shadow that comes up like that. And fades off a little bit as it comes up over here into this next plane. Still, that's a little sharp, so I wanted the contrast, but I don't want it to be sharp all the way across. And I may have to come back and do another run on that one, too. I think I need to change this and create a little tip on it. So, there, change the shape a little bit. Now, one last thing, going back in the distance there, light yellow, the cool blue, and a touch of red since they're distant. Yeah, these trees back here, this little bit, I was wanting to keep it light, and I kept it a little too light, actually. There, that's a better value. And I want to keep it bluer than these trees, which it is right now, but not as blue as the sky or the mountain behind it. Okay, that's better. And I will come in at the bottom of that shoreline and create just a little dark line. Last thing I'm going to do here before we stop is to bring in warm yellow. Oh, let's go back to the Hooker's green, since some of you are interested in green. Still, it's very bright. I would add red to it and blue. I just think it's too bright right now. So if you think you're just going to use a green out of the tube, that is hardly ever true. Okay, let's lay in some darker grasses on top of these more pale grasses. Now that my rocks have started to dry a little bit. So we're adding another value for these grasses. And now I am using my rigger, and grasses grow from the bottom, from the ground up. So I am stroking from the ground up. And I have a nice little layer of pale green, pale yellowish green below. And now it's nice to add another value. Some of these can fade out a little bit. They don't have to be such a sharp transition. And I guess I did leave out some rocks up front, didn't I? Let's get back to this nice rock color. Let's see, just dash these in maybe. Sometimes all you need is a little dash of the right value and you've got the indication of and the feeling of a rock, you know? Let's see, there's a tiny line there. All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching.